and welcome to Crowns and Crows episode 2. We promise we'll record this one. I swear. It'll actually happen this time. We have double, triple, and quadruple checked everything. And yes, please, Valor, put that away. No one wants to see that wiggling around. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here in the I was going to say the IRC chat because apparently I'm really old and but
Really?
yeah, shut up, okay? Yeah. No, but thanks for joining us in the Twitch chat, and thanks to our podcast listeners. Very much welcome. There is going to be a slight buzz this week after PAX East. I should be getting my new mic, and everything should sound perfect. Probably not, because it's technology. Electronics are assholes, so that's okay. But welcome to the show. This is going to be a primarily kind of competitive PvP-oriented style of the Crowfall podcast. Of course, we are talking about Crowfall, the upcoming MMO by ArtCraft, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be one of those MMOs that we have not really ever seen, and we're just really excited about it. Before we actually see it, it's a long way off. Production is still there. And we're just really excited about it. So, without further ado, my hosts are going to be Lake Z and Valor. They are part of Lords of the Dead, LOTD.org. I almost said .com, but I didn't. I was like, no,
again.
It's .org. Please don't murder me.
Oh no, bro.
But it is going to be a really cool show. We have some really cool questions to kind of get to that Valor set up and put into place from some really kind of high-level, old-school PvP guilds that are really, really kind of excited for the game. Of course, I am your host, Bazil, or Patrick, or Hey You with the Face. Whatever you want to say. Doesn't matter. Now, I have been instructed to mention all these guilds by name because, that's what we do here on Crowns and Crows, but we'll get to that in a little bit later. First, I actually want to ask, how was your guys' week? Lake, did you have a good week?
I did. I had a great week, actually. And on top of it, we had a lot of good conversations on the Crowfall forums, and we're just able to gather a lot of community information. And we really worked hard to try to piece together a good generalized topic of what we expect out of this PvP, and we're excited to bring that to you today.
Awesome. Valor, how was your week this week, sir?
My week was better. I actually had the pleasure of getting to go and meet the ArtCraft team.
Nice.
I live in Austin, Texas, so I've got the unique opportunity to, hop across the highway, if you will, and go say hi, see how they're doing. Took them a little bit of congratulatory Johnny Walker. So
okay. All right.
they were appreciative. If you follow me on Twitter, or if you follow really any of them on Twitter, you probably would have seen what happened shortly after taking a shot with Todd. Lots of fun.
Big shot, would you say? The drink?
I mean, it was a shot. Everyone needs a little bit of a little get up and go on a Friday morning. So it was fun, and I do have some spoils of war. They gave me this T-shirt, which I'm going to hold up, but I can't talk at the same time. So hang tight. All right, so I got this figured out. So I got this T-shirt, and if you want one, I believe that they're going to attempt to get these up in a store at some point down the road. So, hey,
one.
plugging.
Send me lots of T-shirts. Send me all the T-shirts so I can plaster my wall with them.
So, giving them a little bit of a plug. Hopefully they get their shop up and running, and they're able to start selling some of these. This was a demo or prototype, something
awesome.
they weren't going to use. So, I had a great week, lots of fun, and I'm excited to get into the meat and potatoes of our podcast.
Awesome.
Really quick, guys. If you haven't done so and you haven't backed the game, at the bottom of our page, we have a link that sends you right to the Kickstarter. Back it. This game is going to be awesome. We're almost there to the first stretch goal, so we're going to be able to get another guy in there to do some graphics and so they can send back our animations to send back the guy to do the graphics and artist work, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So check it out, guys. Back it. It's almost there.
Now, I will say about Kickstarter, if you guys have never actually backed or kickstarted a project before, this is my first time. So, don't feel obligated to do a huge price. You can do the $34 one, and that's awesome. Every little bit helps. You pay $34, you get a digital copy of the game, and the game retails for $50. So you're saving what, $12? Math is difficult. But yeah, Lake, could you turn down your mic about five decibels? People are saying is really, really loud. So
I'm gonna credit that to just sheer excitement.
Just sheer excitement. That's fine. Now, we did have our audio levels perfect last week, but both my hard drives and everything else in my computer just decided to catch on fire. So that was a fun experience. I'm hoping I can get my backup hard drive fixed. A buddy gave me a program, and I'm trying to fix it. It was supposed to work with just a boot disk, but my CD drive crashed. So my computer's not having a good week. So yeah, that's always fun. But let's get right into the meat and potatoes of the show. The topic this week is PvP. What do you expect? And I feel that that's a very important topic because Crowfall is kind of that PvP game. Now, Valor sent out a list of 10 questions to some guilds that participate in high-level PvP, large PvP, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to name off those guilds right now. And the people that participated in the question and answer session were Major from Shipwreck Pirates. Excuse me there, a hiccup at the most opportune time. Tuco, I believe is how you say his name, from the Professionals. Durakis, I think. I'd
go with that as well.
I'd go with that, yeah. Okay, awesome. From the Knights and Glory, I'm sorry, the Knights of Glory and Beer, which is just a great name. Lords of the Dead, OBS. And
nope.
What?
Lords of Death, brother.
Oh, my bad.
This is one of those things. I even called out Todd on it, so no one.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, so we have OBS from Lords of Death. We have Hades from Lords of the Dead. Don't get those confused, like I do, because I'm awesome like that. And we have Ginkgo, which I think is probably one of the best in-game names I've heard in a long time. Ginkgo is just a fantastic name, from the Undead Lords. So a lot of Lords in Death here from the guilds that participated. But big thank you to all of those guys. You guys have been phenomenal in kind of helping us get our QA ready and wasted here. I think it needs to be said that these are all opinions and not necessarily reflecting the entire guilds that have kind of participated. It's just one person's opinions. They're not all guild leaders, and they're not all people of high rank in the guild. They just responded and wanted their guild in there. So just kind of throwing that PSA out there. I'm a little discombobulated. It's been a long week for me, but hey, that's okay. Show must go on, right, gentlemen? All right. I'd like to open up the topic of PvP with a quote. And Valor, you have a deeper, sexier voice than I do. And I'm going to ask you to read this quote here. I'll link it in Skype just in case you don't have it pulled up. But this is a quote from General George S. Patton, who was a very famous general. So, Valor, what did he say?
This was given as a response to PvP and what you expect. And this quote is, "Battle is the most magnificent competition in which a human being can indulge. It brings out all that is best. It removes all that is base. All men are afraid in battle. The coward is the one who lets his fear overcome his sense of duty. Duty is the essence of manhood."
Manhood.
Manhood.
Like a rock.
It's that quote is really kind of, I think, really important to a game that kind of centralizes on PvP and being, I guess, I don't want to say bragging, but conceptualizing large PvP events and having these campaigns over months to 3 months, and you have to find food and resources. I mean, that's all what battle is fighting for survival, making sure that everything goes perfectly, and if it doesn't, really quickly reacting to that style of combat. So in a way, Crowfall to me feels like an MMO, but also an RTS, where you have to plan and always keep that strategy in the back of your mind of, oh my gosh, she just pulled in, 16 mages. We have to completely redo our strategy, but you have to, be on your toes and do that quickly. So I think it's really important that the quote from Mr. Patton is kind of there. And Lake, what's kind of your thoughts on that kind of concept?
So that quote together just really hit home with me as far as you talk about competition, and this quote directly affects the spirit of competition across the board, whether it's an NFL football game or a hockey game. Across the board, battle is the most magnificent sort of competition that humans I'm quoting it almost. It just hits it, square on the head of it. That's what brings fun to some. That's why people enjoy playing video games. That's why some people enjoy playing sports. Is it's a way of expressing that human emotion of competition. Like, people thrive all over that.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
And even more so, you take that and you apply it to video games. And if you want to have player-driven content, it's very difficult to find player-driven PvE rating. You have some of the economic elements, which can be player-driven, where you can have players determine what their currency is going to be, which is what is something that's been alluded to by ArtCraft. But for true player-driven content,
Yeah.
PvP is the end-all, be-all. That's where players can get in there and just, they can wage wars. They can create their own history on servers. And talk about such an amazing concept as being able to create history that you look back and say, oh man, do you remember back in World War I? I mean, you say World War I to anyone who played Darkfall, and they know what you're talking about. And I think that Crowfall has the opportunity to have these campaigns where people can say, oh, do you remember the dregs of July 2015, where what the players did turns into what became history.
I would definitely agree with that. I think that it is synonymous. There we go. There's that word. To kind of just really, honestly, I think that quote really kind of, I guess, kind of hits you right here a little bit, kind of in your soul as a human being. Because when we look at PvP, we see gladiators, we see just even caveman did wrestle around the cave every once in a while to prove who's the bigger guy.
Do you have proof?
I don't know. No, I don't have proof of that, but I'm only guessing that's going to be the case, just because we do that now, so I can only assume that cave people did that as well. So I think that it's really important to kind of open up the show with that quote. And the questions that we have are, I think, very critical of the game, but also at the same time really kind of ask the question as to why we are going to be playing this game and why we're so excited for it. So question one, we're not going to go over all the questions. We just picked the best ones that got the best answers, because we could be here for 4.5 hours. Question one is really just kind of like, why do we participate in PvP? Why do we do it? Why do we enjoy the crazy just aspect of it? And Valor, I'm going to let you kind of take the ball and run here.
For me, what I started off with in gaming when I first started playing online games is, there's a lot of the RP element to it, and it's exploring and finding out what the world is. But once I got through, the first couple of months of my first MMO, what I realized is that what I enjoyed most was PvP, and it's the competition. It's getting that adrenaline rush. It is being able to test yourself, not against a mathematical algorithm. It's testing yourself against an ever-evolving enemy, and being able to come out on top. Because of course that's what I do.
Kind of egotistical of you there, Valor, but that's okay.
Let's just slide that in.
Just kind of slide that in. Yeah. All right. Like, what about you, sir?
So across the board, everyone knows kind of my background is PvP games, whether they're MMOs, um, MOBAs. I participate in games that just have a really strong PvP environment. And right now, currently, you would say that MOBAs are probably the biggest PvP game along with FPSs. Because you look at esports is a direct competition of teams playing against each other and tried in somewhat of a balanced realm, being that arena-based combat. Not saying that's the way that Crowfall should go, but what I'm saying is that is just pure PvP at its best. One, there's competition. You have Smash Brothers, you have Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Counter Strike, League of Legends, Dota 2, like the list goes on, Smite. And that PvP at its pure form, you don't battle for anything other than just pure rank status.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you start to get to the highest levels, that's when you start to compete with other teams for large amounts of money, sponsorships. There's just so much money revolved around that whole industry. And you could take that PvP aspect and you could put it into every game. If there's a reason why you want to be the best, whether it's a ladder or you're fighting for something, that's exactly what will motivate players, is that glory. So essentially, that's why I play PvP, is for that glory. I don't need anything special. I don't even need cosmetics. I just need a way to prove that I was the best, or that I have this level of glory that I have achieved over other players.
Right. Okay, so I think I can agree with both of you. You know, it's the thrill of competition. It's getting that adrenaline going. It's saying, "Hey, I'm the best. I'm better than you." Oh, really? Well, prove it, and then you kick his butt. I mean, for me, like I have a professional gaming background, and you guys pretty much summed up why I want this game to do well. And keep in mind, guys, as we're talking about this, we really don't know anything about the game other than what they're telling us, and what they're telling us is all conceptualized. Nothing has been promised. Nothing has been, oh, well, our game's going to have this. It's we are making this concept. We want this to work. Here's our idea. That is you guys gotta have to kind of take that in mind for our newer listeners that are curious about the game, curious about some of the shows that do content for Crowfall. Is nothing has been finalized. So as we're talking about that, keep in mind that the developers are still listening to feedback and input from you guys, and I think it's important that the reasons that we're going into PvP stays the same throughout our entire kind of why we want to go into Crowfall, and don't bend the rules just because we want the game to succeed. But I want the rules to bend in a way where it is acceptable for the from a community standpoint and from a gameplay standpoint. I want the game to stay competitive, and if the game's not for everybody, I'd rather it stay that way than rather have a I guess WildStar or Guild Wars 2 style kind of PvP in. Would you guys agree with that at all? Do you think that that's putting standards a little bit too high?
I don't think that's putting standards too high. What I really want is they're very receptive to the feedback that comes on in the forums. And I think that they're going to make adjustments and try to appease what the hardcore gamer and the dedicated people have kind of put out there for input. So I feel like they're going to do a good job trying to listen and shape the game around what the community kind of wants to see. And to be honest, the community and looking at a whole all wants the same thing. We were promised two different things. We were promised an in-depth crafting system and awesome PvP. And those are two different games that they're trying to merge together into one. And the promise, and the only promise I think everybody here wants, is those two systems to be merged together to be an equal parts within a game itself. So they keep on talking, our Golden Glory guys, about the economy PvP and how they're going to have to merge together. And if they can accomplish that goal and keep it kind of fair across the board, because they're both going to rely on each other to be successful. I'm going to have to give all of my resources to some guy to craft me some gear so I can go out and kill some more people to continue our progression within those campaigns. So as long as they can do that and they listen, we listen to their feedback, because sometimes the community may be wrong in a lot of things and may not get the overall picture. So I think they're doing a great job of listening and trying to give their feedback and exactly why they're choosing specific ways to go about it.
Okay, awesome. So question 2, we asked the guilds, do you prefer large scale PvP, 10 versus 10, or small scale like arena and that kind of stuff? Overall, overall everyone kind of agreed that both have their place, but they want to see smaller battles also in kind of an open world setting. Valor, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, what tends to happen when you have a game that supports large scale PvP is you have some guilds that just really want to keep it to their core. They don't want to have to deal with managing 100, 150 man roster, and so they want to be able to specialize in being just complete badasses out on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And and so they only want to be able to run around with 30 or 40 people, but be able to be successful. And anything larger than that, they tend to just call a Zerg, regardless of how well organized and led it is. There are other communities, however, that they embrace the need to go ahead and lead those large of guilds or war bands or whatever they want to call it in each particular game, of 50, 100, 150 people. And that is so that they can accomplish, map-wide or server-wide, in this case, campaign-wide objectives. And so, everyone wants to be able to be good in the small-scale engagements, but everyone also respects that there is oftentimes the need to be able to lead those large-scale encounters. And I think with Crowfall, what we're coming to see is that they want to eliminate as much as they can the Zerg ball that people encountered in Guild Wars 2. I know that Osium from the Mercs, he actually gave a response later on, and he referenced, you want to be able to combat large scale versus small scale.
Mm-hmm.
Do simple stuff like eliminate tab targeting and turn on friendly fire. And we know right now at least they're going to start off with friendly fire on most of the servers.
So that actually kind of brings up an interesting point and kind of question that I wanted to ask real quick. Do you guys think that friendly fire will be turned off pretty quickly once the masses actually get involved in it? Because if you think about it, gaming has been so dumbed down over the last 10 years. Because, I mean, friendly fire used to be a thing in first-person shooters. Friendly fire used to be a thing in, large-scale PvP-style games. Like, if you did a giant AoE and you had buddies next to you, yeah, they're probably going to also get caught on fire and look at you and go, dude, what the crap is your problem? I am right here. So do you think that them turning on friendly fire and saying we want this to be something, a part of our game, Lake, do you think that this might be a kind of a roadblock for them in terms of getting casuals or normal people to play the game?
So this is a Crowfall podcast, so I won't do this again. I won't reference another game that's trying to come out, but I'm going to talk about it in Camelot Unchained. They are creating that game in the PvP combat to specifically be geared towards the higher skill players. And they may not attract the unskilled or the people that just want more of a casual style game. It really depends on what Crowfall's target audience is. Whether they want to make this game skilled enough or hard enough to where people have to be good. They have to be able to use those skills properly or they're going to wipe their party. So it really, like I said, depends. But I also think what they're going to play with is the rule sets. The rule sets are going to have a large impact on friendly fire on servers. Like I can almost guarantee, obviously this is an assumption of mine, but the dregs being a high risk, high reward is probably going to have friendly fire turned on. Reason being is because they have different rule sets that they talked about, and we'll talk about this next time because PvP is going to be a huge. We could talk about this all day, just like we could talk about crafting all day into multiple shows. But the rule set and the bloodstones and that whole concept, just that right there, they want to put in the large scale and the small scale style of combat. And across the board, you want that friendly fire involved in skilled competition like that. Rating and everything else is going to revolve around being able to use those skills just properly. And they're going to try their best to make friendly fire work. I think we're all hoping for it. One, it's going to help eliminate that Zerg ball that we kind of talked about that we don't really like. I'm the type of person where I really like both styles of PvP. I like small scale. I like arena. I like small group tactics. I also like the large scale tactics. I mean, I'm in the military, as many other people are, and those both style of tactics apply on a battlefield, and you can directly relate a lot of those styles into this game. And if they can complement each other, I'm going to be really excited to see what they come up with.
Okay, awesome. Now, in terms of like large scale, someone in chat mentioned the voxel system. Valor, do you think that that'll play a kind of a key role in terms of like friendly fire, like accidentally crushing your enemies with falling debris as you fireball them out, and be like, oh well, that was my bad? Do you think that that's something that we're gonna have to watch out for, or do you think that that may be asking too much of ArtCraft at this point to try and actually put into the game at launch?
Yeah, no, they've definitely said that before, that if we're going to be blowing up walls with fireballs, or if you take their video with a hammer, if you've got a couple of guys who are scouting out and they're underneath those walls and walls come down, there's going to be damage, and whoever's close to it. So the cool concept is if you knock down a wall and it explodes out on the other side, you could damage some of the defenders on the other side of the wall. But on the flip side, if you've got two guys too close to it, how else that's going to be incorporated in just an open field? That's where I'm kind of interested in terms of voxels and friendly fire. Is if you're dropping fireballs and they create a hole and then something drops on top of it, or what are they going to do? I mean, I can't even think of the different possibilities right now.
Right,
But
right.
I'd say, yeah, it's got me excited too. I mean, we're talking about groundbreaking stuff that really hasn't been implemented in a successful game or MMO yet.
Right, right, yeah, of course. And the other MMO that's using voxel based systems is going to be EverQuest next. So I think those two kind of using that system will be really interesting to see how each game uses that in terms of their PvP. So the next question that really caught our eye was, do you prefer open world, arena / battlegrounds, or both equally in terms of like PvP? Everyone that answered the question overall wanted it as open world as possible, but there was some, they like arenas and that kind of stuff as well. So I think that when we're looking at a large-scale assault style MMO, I think that putting arenas in this game, or coliseums, or a gladiator stadium or something like that, isn't going to be a bad thing. Just because you want to appeal to the smaller competitive groups as well. Not everyone enjoys 20 versus 20. Just kill each other, have fun. Question 4 is kind of when we started to see some more long drawn out answers in terms of like detail. Question 4 was, should PvP be balanced for 1v1 or X versus X, and why? Valor, Dracus had some really good points, and we took some of his kind of answers. Could you go over those real quick for us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and when we say X versus X, of course we're saying, is it going to be based off of 20 versus 20, 30 versus 30, etc. Dracus from KGB said, PvP will never be balanced. Everyone can try it, but unless you have, everyone has the same stick, the same ping, the same latency, the same computer, PvP will never be balanced. It's
Right.
impossible. So no matter what they do, there will never be a completely balanced MMO. It's just not going to happen. But what they can do is, the more you balance, I'm sorry, I'm going to just go back to his quote, is, the more you balance, the more unhinged the core mechanics become, the more they tinker around with things. He said, the fact is that quite often you alienate certain play styles or shun specific players. You isolate that which adds diversity to the game, and you crush it beneath balancing. And I mean, it's so true. We have 12 different archetypes,
Yeah.
and of those 12, they're all going to have the different things that they're good at. If somebody wants to build up a crafter, great. But you know what? If you build up a crafter, he's not going to be as good as an archer who's built for PvP.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for, is a game that understands and accepts that not every character is going to be good. Now, should a ranger be as good as a knight if both are spec'd for melee PvP? Well, I would say that, based off of starting stats and everything, that yeah, the knight should probably be better in melee combat. But if that knight spec for melee PvP and that ranger spec for ranged PvP, if they meet up on an open battlefield and the ranger has high ground, well then yes, I think that ranger should win, more often than they lose, as long as both players are equally skilled. So for me, I don't know, like I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, across the board, you look at how some development teams they balance PvP, and they balance things that certain specs or certain classes may be particularly very good at because it might be too good or people are playing that too well, and oftentimes it actually hinders that play style. And I'm just going to directly bring up the point of an assassin type carry or some sort of person that can pick off in a 1v1 situation. And once it gets into melee form with some sort of stealth, it go ahead 100 to 0 somebody and they're dead. People may not like that style of play, but if you're playing somebody that necessarily may not be able to handle a 1v1, you shouldn't be traveling 1v1. You've got to play your class to it's the way it's supposed to be played, or not the way it's supposed to be played, but you got to play towards its strengths and not its weaknesses. If you're playing something that can't be by itself, like if you're trying to escort your crafter somewhere, your crafter shouldn't lottie-dottie up the field with nobody there kind of protecting it. You may have to have some sort of protection, some sort of presidential protection type deal on your crafter. So across the board, you can't nerf things that are particularly, like that class is particularly good at, because I like to see classes that can go in there, stealth up on a 1v1 situation, get onto a ranged carry, like a ranger or something, and then just kill it. Stick on top of it, kill it. It's your fault. You were kind of there by yourself. You weren't traveling maybe that high ground path that Valor was talking about. You've really got to be strategic in your play style. And that's military tactics. You don't have a sniper go and run down a valley to try to get to his next spot, because you're going to lose footing. You're not going to be able to run up a mountain to get to high ground to get position on another squad down.
Well, I mean, unless you're playing Battlefield, then you're fine. But yes, in real life, that is a very, very good point.
But they're trying to put those style of combat into this game with the physics across the board. Whether you may get tired running up a hill faster than you may running down a hill, like everything's gonna play. And I don't know exactly how in depth they're gonna go, but you could go extremely in depth. Like I was saying, this PvP could be built for a high skill cap.
I mean, yeah, it's a really interesting concept when it kind of comes to how they are going to incorporate physics and then just kind of everything else. I think I think it's too early to say what's going to be what until we actually get either our hands on that kind of stuff or we actually get some more kind of gameplay footage style things. And, as we saw in the Kickstarter video, I mean, it's so, like, early concept that the FPS of the gameplay footage wasn't even fluid. It wasn't even smooth. So that tells me we got a long way to go before we actually, actually see the full kind of conceptualized ideas put into video format and actual in-game play. So I'm not really too concerned about that. Valor, do you have any concerns or anything about that kind of stuff?
Honestly, I'm not terribly concerned about it. From the most part, they have been very upfront with the status of their game. And with it being, I mean, when we talk pre-alpha, I mean, we're talking pre. Nobody's really testing this game outside of their office, as far as I know, and they were just building archetypes,
right?
Just what, last week.
Yep.
So I'm not surprised. Look, they're going to be working on the core mechanics. They're talking about hitting their stretch goal, getting some more guys on the team to help out with some of that. They want to change and improve even what we saw. So for anyone who wants to know, hey, what do we expect out of Crowfall? I mean, don't expect a whole lot this year. Yes, they'll probably be able to get into early alpha alpha testing, things along those lines. But then after that, they're going to use all of that time to work on balancing. So, they're going to build the base, and then they're going to make it pretty as time goes on, which is just the typical thing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So there has been. I'm sorry, I'm completely distracted right now. I looked at something and my mind went somewhere else. I need to not do that while I'm actually doing a show. Just like, hey, look, pretty butterfly. Ooh, squirrel.
Well, we're on question 8 right now, aren't we? With
yeah,
Noah Zerg?
Yep. I had a idea that I wanted to talk about it, and it completely slipped my mind. So we'll just move on. Question 8, I think, is kind of where the most important kind of topic lies within this game. Question 8 is knowing that the Zerg, quote unquote, has become a problem in MMOs due to the massive influx of players over the last 10 years. What are the top 3 things developers could do to reduce the Zerg influence / power in games? And this is really, really difficult to hammer down because there's more than 3 things that can obviously break and just completely dismantle a game that is meant for large PvP. Lake, what is your kind of take on this?
So there's multiple things, but the 2 that come to mind, they already have in place. 1, different rule sets. The rule sets are going to favor either large or small scale combat. Depending on what rule set's in place, you may have to play different styles. And those, if you Zerg up, you may lose something that's designed to be in a small scale combat style of rule set. And then on top of that, they've also talked about friendly fire. I think combined with those 2 things, those are the top 2 things that they've already talked about that has the potential to kind of negate that Zerg ball. And on top of that, they are going to play with maybe death timers and the fact that people are going to lose some of their gear if they die. So you're not going to want to send in 10 of your people to just get murdered by somebody so you could try to Zerg up something else. You're going to start to lose guys if you don't have a little tact to your movement. So right now I feel like they have the core elements in place to kind of negate some of that Zerg concept. There are some other things they can do, but I just want to talk about those 2 things that they already have in place to negate some of that Zerg ball. What do you think, Valor?
Well, we sent out this survey, and I think that some of these guys did a really good job of summing up, some of the problems. If we take a look at, some of the responses for this one, I think Dracus had a good quote, KGB, develop battlefield points of control, personal objectives, challenges, and create clan management tools for in-game organizational purposes. Zergs happen when a clan cannot oversee or direct their numbers strategically. I think that this is, empower guilds, give guilds the ability to be able to manage their players. And, if there are some games where it's simply, you just have more or less a list. Here's all of your members, and that's all you get. There's no in-game calendar. There's no message of the day. There's no, some games don't even have sorting systems, such as, ArcAge. ArcAge does not have a sorting system for their guild management, and it just makes it too easy to just fall into that mass.
Yeah.
And what I can tell you though is, you have guys like Obs from LOD. Hades touched on it as well, and what they're saying put a hard cap. Have in-game mechanics that will put a hard cap on guilds. It makes it significantly more challenging. In Warhammer, when we went up against the goons on, I believe it was Azazel, I believe it was a server. When we went up against the goons, they brought 12 to 1,500 people to that server. This is all on one server, and they had to break that up across 3 guilds. It took them, within 60 days, they were down to just about 1 active guild. The point being it makes managing that many people that much more difficult when you have to break it out across multiple guilds. Friendly fire, some of these things we've already touched on. Yeah. Those are going to help as well. But these are just simple things. Guilds don't need to be able to accommodate 700 people, especially in a game like Crowfall.
I would definitely agree. one of the biggest problems that I've always had with like super large scale combats is the Zerg mentality, and that is a huge problem. And all these guilds that we've asked these questions with really kind of came up with the same answers. Hard cap. Don't allow people to just, stupid cap everything. Like, there's games that do that. It's just like, all right, Zerg just kind of goes boop, 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 boop. Like, don't be Planet Side 2, where you're just like, we have 400 players. Have fun, everybody else. I mean, it's just because like I was in one of those guilds in Planet Side 2. We had 200 to 350 players every night, 6 days a week, and we would just waffle stomp for like 3 hours, and it was the best thing in the world. But no one else was having fun. We were having fun. But you got to engage everybody. So I think Tuco also kind of makes a good point in having many objectives around the map encourages players to split up to complete them, and doesn't encourage people just to be like, bam, castle, go. 400 people go to the castle. It's 50 there, 100 people there, 100 people there. So I think it's really, really important to have objectives and to branch out the really important objectives, kind of like your hand. Instead of, just one finger, you have 5 fingers that you have to deal with. And games like WildStar's War Plots, that was a big problem, is everyone would just Zerg to the generator, and no one would really care about anything else, because, that's just the way it went. And I think Guild Wars 2 kind of had a good system in place, but the problem was there wasn't enough important objectives to split people off, and then, the Zerg mentality became a big issue. So Guild Wars 2, kind of has it correct, but it's not quite there yet. And so I think that Crowfall being just completely PvP focused is going to be something that we really haven't seen before, because every MMO up to this point has always had PvE and PvP. I mean, I honestly can't think of an MMO that was just PvP and was actually successful. If you guys can, great, but my memory is terrible.
Well, you'd have to go way back. I mean, to be honest, you'd have to go way back, and if it's not an MMO, you're looking at what other types of games outside of MMOs would be
right
quantified as that.
Mm-hmm. And I think probably Planet Side is probably the closest that we can get to massive world, just player versus player. But Lake, did you have any other things that you want to bring up, or are you good then?
No, I mean, you guys basically covered it.
Okay.
All the points that they talked about, all the other leaders and all these other guilds and communities, they have a very good consensus about what they want from this. So, I mean, the community has spoken for the most part. Everyone's kind of on the same page here.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. So question 9 kind of has to do a little bit about gear. Knowing that gear grinds have also become a norm in MMOs, which, dear sweet mother, I hate that crap. What do you think the developers could do to reduce the influence of gear grinds / PvE on PvP? Now, Valor, I know that all three of us have talked about this off air, to death. But Lake, you've actually brought up some interesting points on kind of the gear grind and how this is going to be different. So why don't you elaborate on those a little bit?
So across the board, the progression style or the progression path that Crowfall's taken with character progression, say it again, 3 times progression, right, is that it's going to be more of a linear. The only real vertical within this game is going to be the gear. They have to be able to manage that vertical, being that gear, to keep PvP somewhat manageable as far as keeping that skill cap still relatively high, but they still have to make it important enough to where people want to do it. And I think they're going to be able to do it with the concept of having 2 different games. You're going to have an economy game with the crafting and the PvP together. The next thing that they're putting into place is the fact that everything's going to be player made. And that's really important because everything is accessible at that point. Whether you get the resources or not, it's accessible to everybody at some point. You don't have to go and grind this boss over and over again, but to me, there's still some sort of relationship between me having to grind that same resource over and over again and having to kill a boss over and over again for a gear drop. It's a similar concept, but still not the same, because you have a wider variety of people to be able to grab that resource from, or provide a service to trade for that resource so you can get that gear made. So I feel like that's how they're going to be able to handle it, is it's going to be accessible across the board. And I don't have to go to OnRes over and over again for the same piece of gear, when I could go to someone else that has a different piece of, or has the same gear, but maybe is offering something different or wants my services. He wants me to go out and kill a bunch of people. I have no problem doing that, man. Just hook me up with the gear and I'll murder people for you. It's no big deal.
Bounty for gear. I am all for that.
I'm for hire, guys. But across the board, that's where I feel like they're going to be able to handle that gear grind. Is everything's going to be player made and accessible at some point. You have to be good enough to be able to get it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Valor, before we move on to question 10, Drakus had something really, really kind of important to say. This is just kind of a summary of what he said. But he said, do not make gear a priority. Stop placing importance on such things. How do you feel that is going to be relevant in a game where it's only crafted PvP, or crafted gear, I should say, from players?
Well, what I think that they're going to do, and you brought up Drakus, and to be honest, for the most part, every single guild leader from the different communities that we polled, each of them more or less said the same thing. Gear needs to be, an advantage, but not the determining factor for success. And it should be easy come, easy go. I took that quote directly from Osium from the Mercs. Mm-hmm. Gear is something that it should simply bolster what you want your character to be good at. It shouldn't make your character better. And by better, I mean it shouldn't just be because I have this gear, now I'm on this echelon. No, it should be because I have this particular gear, it's going to make these skills in these situations better. It's going to make you a better situational player. And that's what I think where gear can play a factor, but not be the determining factor. If you run up against a melee and you spec all of your gear out for protecting against melee damage and deflecting and whatever other, fanciful things can be on your equipment, congratulations, you did a fantastic job. Now your gear that you just spent, a month, working on, great, you did a good job, you beat that guy. However, you go up against a ranger with ranged damage, it doesn't matter if you spent a month getting that awesome gear because you didn't take into account the range. And I think that is how they are going to do the gear. I think that it's going to focus on specialization and not just overall making your character this badass.
And that's exactly what I was going to point out immediately after you were done, was that the gear has a possibility of, first of all, we don't know the stats. I do not know how powerful 4 strength over 5 strength is going to be. That's a big determining factor on how gear might be made. Because if those kind of stats are extremely strong, to where if my sword gives me +3 strength and all of a sudden I can 4-shot somebody with a little less strength than me, then that's a problem. I don't think they're going to go that route. They're going to balance the stats out to where it is going to give you that advantage. But I think they're going to also be able to create customizations within the gear themselves. So maybe this piece of gear that is commonly made, I can take it to a crafter, because I'm not a crafter. I may give it to some guy that specialized in it, and he's going to be able to maybe give me gear that reflects 15% of my damage, or some sort of stat that allows me to be able to customize my playstyle. Because if I want to jump into the fray, maybe I want something that reflects a little bit of that damage to the person giving it to me.
Yeah. That's a really good kind of idea or kind of concept on how gear is going to work. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we're going to have more kind of interaction with the developers when it kind of comes to how we are going to see things kind of fabricate in kind of the crafting world. Because that's really important when it comes to gear. I think that gear in a game like this that's only player made is going to just kind of solidify and kind of bring the community closer rather than tear it apart, because it's really annoying. Valor, you wanted to say one last point here before we go to the Q&A.
Yeah. Yeah, so just one last quick hitter before we hit up the Q&A. Hades actually, guild leader from LOTD, Lords of the Dead, he said that, you know what, why can't high-ranked players have a chance to drop great loot? And in this case, the resources. Why does it have to be off of certain mobs?
Mm-hmm.
If they do have a ranking system of some sort, some element of that, why not allow there to be drops off of players? Why? I mean, you obviously have to be careful of people trying to game the system, but if there are rankings, nobody's going to want to just tank their rankings so that somebody can get some good gear. These are the sorts of things that, hey, it's a cool idea. Consider it, see if you can make it work. But I personally would rather only fight against players than have to fight against mobs.
Yeah.
Because I know every single mob that I have ever heard being created has always been beaten by a player.
Yeah.
That is just one of those things. And once you do it, then it just comes down to muscle memory. So
Yep.
that's
would
what I
definitely
have
agree
to
with
say
that.
about that.
Yeah. So, the last question was, what should PvP be about in general? And everyone was like, it should be fun, engaging, and just overall enjoyable. And I think we can all agree to that. So we're going to open it up to Q&A. For our podcast listeners, this is a chance for the people in our Twitch chat or people that have sent us emails and whatnot, which I still haven't made the email address because I'm bad. I will do that after the show, I promise. To ask questions, give us topics, or just kind of, ask us. It's pretty much a Q&A session. Just, I don't really care what you ask, but keep it PG, I guess. I'm gonna completely butcher this name, so just be prepared for that. What? How? I'm gonna call him Dot. Dot just sounds is way easier.
I'm gonna go with Pixel Dot.
Sure, Pixel Dot. You couldn't just say Pixel. It's just
it's too much fun. It's too much fun watching you.
I'm terrible with names.
Ripped.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names. What kind of mechanics will be in place to ensure that players don't only stay like one area, like a hot spot in a campaign? And honestly, I think that this is going to be something that the devs will just kind of have to work around and really just kind of watch how the community reacts to things, because there's always going to be that one area where it's the best kind of area to farm, or whatever you want to say. Valor, you want to cut in here?
Yeah, look, I'm excited to answer this because there's, what they keep telling us is that there are seasons, and that as a campaign continues and continues to evolve, what you're going to see is that things become more difficult to kill, and they become more valuable. So, while it is going to be important to get to the embargo areas to be able to drop off your loot so that you can, retrieve it, you're going to have to balance that with the later you wait in a campaign, now other people will be out there doing their farming, and then they're going to go to the embargo. And so it's going to be a constant, pull and go. And, I see that there's some comments that there isn't going to be just one embargo, but, these resource points are going to be big. And everyone's going to want to try, and you're going to see the strategy evolve. Everyone's going to want to try and, just cram everything into the end. And then after that, they're going to see that, that just doesn't work. And so it's going to be this ever-evolving thing where everyone's going to be trying to balance, taking their resources and dropping them off with, fighting over other people's resources, with still, gathering more resources.
Right.
And, and there's going to be more than just, an embargo area as a hotspot. I mean, there's going to be a lot of areas over there that PvP is going to be driven around. And I am just excited the fact that, this is what they're focusing on, and it's not the mobs later in the game or in the campaign. That is the last thing that people wanting to play a PvP game want to deal with, other than, just adding an extra element and an extra level to PvP.
Yeah.
And I think to follow that up, just real quick, is the fact that the whole purpose of the campaign, right, is to win. You can put as much resources inside of your vault as you want. But if you don't win, you're not going to be able to bring all that back. You've still got to be able to balance, like Valor said, and make that those resources count. You're going to have to be able to continue to progress and win that campaign to bring all your spoils back. And if you're the type of person where you're going to sit there and continue to just drop off, a trickle drop off, and you're just not feeding back in, it's almost like buying a house and you're trying to sell it for something later on, and you have to put money into the house essentially to build the profit back up. And that's kind of the same concept as far as being able to win the campaign. I'm going to have to invest a large amount of resources for my gear within the game to continue to progress, to win the campaign, to bring back all my spoils of war. If I just trickle stuff in and I'm not really focused on the campaign, I'm more worried about trying to camp people, I may not even win the campaign. I'm not going to be able to bring back everything that I just ganked that dude over. So I think that's what it's going to be, is the hot spots, the whole concept of winning the campaign. Everyone wants to win, and I am not going to lose because I want to trickle in resources that I may not be able to bring back.
Yeah, and Blixtiv, I believe that's how you say the name, also said that there are all kinds of hotspots over the map besides the embargo one. But he also said, you also have to win. So I think my only concern is how important are those hotspots to complete the win, to get control over whatever you're fighting for. So I think that is an important aspect for the devs to kind of say a little bit more on, because you can have hotspots all over the map. Guild Wars 2 did that all the time, but no one ever went for them because it was just easier to group up as 400 billion people and just go around the map. So I think it's really important for them to really kind of explain how important the hotspots are going to be. And, do they actually contribute like a huge amount of resources or buffs or whatever? Another kind of question that was brought up by, I can actually pronounce this one, Wooglinks, because it's just easy. So based on Valor's face, I probably pronounced it wrong, but I don't care.
You're consistent, so
hey, exactly. As long as I'm consistent.
As long as you're consistently bad. Okay. We can fix that.
Hey, I'm good at PvP. I can't read. Okay, so come on. Is that a correlation, or should I be worried?
Someone give this guy a hammer.
There we go.
I actually have a hammer. I just can't reach it. He said, "I'm curious how useful castles will be." Because they're too easy to take down. We saw in the video of the castle wall being frozen, the dwarf throwing his hammer, and the wall breaking apart. So, he's wondering, is he oversimplifying that, or is it okay to just build them and then boom?
Yeah, I think he's pretty clearly. I mean, that was made just for
the voxels.
I mean, it was just a display. Castles, I am sure, are going to be of strategic importance and will factor into winning conditions in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, how cool is that?
So I also want to take time here. Blixtiv also said more info about the pull types coming out in the next few weeks.
Points of interest.
Yeah, points of interest. Thank you. Or hotspots. So just kind of look for that in the next few weeks. Wow, my hiccups are just the worst timing ever. But Lake, to kind of, I guess, close off our Q&A, because we are running up here on time. Exactly, we're doing a good job. What, in terms of what's been talked about, do you think that we're going to see the community go crazy over the next few weeks and just kind of theory craft a bunch of stuff?
I mean, I'm a theory crafter. I think everyone here kind of is. And that's why we're all sitting here in this podcast talking about the game together, including everyone in chat. So here's my 2 cents on it. I think the Valor hit it on the head a little bit. It was more to kind of show the voxels in action. But think of it this way. If you are somebody that can throw your hammer against the wall, that hammer just exploded. Now you're going to run into my castle with your bare fists and try to beat me? There's tons of strategy going to be involved. And I really think that they have a handle on the type of resources that are needed to take down a wall of a castle. Because if you make everything paper thin, then there's no point in me even building a castle. And they know this. I think they're going to be fine with their development and trying to make this a balanced game. I know that I've heard this over and over again is, oh, the dwarf, the forge master, he threw his hammer at the wall, but it exploded, man. He's going to run in there with his fists and battle you like Rocky. He's not going to win. So across the board, I think what they need to do is you have to take a look, and I know they're going to do this, but the amount of resources it does take to take down a wall. And as long as they can make it worthwhile to build that wall, then castles are going to be just fine.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So we have come to a close here, a little bit longer than normal, but you know what? We like to talk, so deal with it, I guess. Once again, Lake, Valor, thank you so much for being on the show with me once again. Valor, what is your Twitter? Twiddle? Oh, I just...
You can twit me at Born in Valor, keeping it simple. And Lake.
Lake Z _. That's where you'll find me at. That's where I camp all day.
All
Yeah,
right,
right there with
all
you.
right. And you can find me at Bazil. Make sure to check out Lords of the Dead. We are going to be a big Crowfall guild and kick all your butts. Guys will be crying and asking for your taxes to be lowered all
Air
the
day.
times.
Air Day.
Air day. Yes, we're suddenly talking horribly. But LOTD.
You guys aren't humble at all.
No, we're not. LOTD.org. Also, make sure to check out qtimes.com, just a fun little website I'm a part of that just does random gaming stuff. And they also just started a D&D show, which is really cool. The next Crowfall show over on, I believe it is, hang on, twitch.tv/MMORPGCOM. That's going to be the Gold and Glory podcast hosted by Arwolf, Onrez, Chief Sarkhan, and Real Lethality, I think, if I remember correctly. They will be doing some cool crafting discussion and just they're like the super nerds of like the PvP world. So instead of ganking you like physically, they'll just steal your wallet and run away and laugh at you. So I remember them doing that in WildStar. Like they would just huck up prices of just everything and be like, "What the heck? What is wrong with you people? I want to buy my stuff cheap. Stop it." So we will be back next week every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or that is going to be 5:30 Pacific Standard Time or 7:30 Central Standard Time. I really, really hate time zones. Why can't they just all use one? Stupid equator. But thank you to everyone who has been in the chat. Thank you to our viewers. You guys have been really, really awesome. Podcast listeners, thank you so much. Email will be up this week. If you're coming to PAX East, come say hi. I'll be working with Motiga at their gigantic booth. I'll be in the tournament practice leader. And Lake and Valor, are any of you guys going by chance?
Not
Okay.
in the cards this time.
All right.
Dude,
well,
I live in Hawaii, man, so it's kind of expensive.
Start
but-
swimming. Start swimming. You got
There
a
you
couple
go.
So I
days.
plan on going to Prime. Hopefully
Okay.
I can make that happen and we can all meet up in Prime, including everyone from the chat. Maybe Crowfall will be out there, the ArtCraft team, and we can all have a great time sitting around the booth.
Awesome.
Booth.
Boof.
Well, they were at they had Todd up at PAX West, and that's apparently when they hit 10,000 backers. So
Nice.
there you go.
That's awesome. Well, that's it. That's all, guys. God bless. Have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening. We'll see you guys next week. Check us out on iTunes as well. And from us to you, see ya. Crowfall. Yeah, that was cheesy, but well. Bye.